last few weeks. We began with Egypt, and we looked at how the Egyptians found ways to strengthen their bricks and how they use their environment. Last week, we looked at the Assyrians and how they used several different angles to attack their problem, and were able to go over, under, and through the walls of their enemies or victims. And this week, we're going to look at dreams, Babylon, and systems. Next week, boats, Persia, and innovation. And week 5, I think we're going to go to Greece, but we may do Rome. We got a little ways before we have to decide that. So that's where we are and where we're headed. And so just as a reminder, we are going to talk about our drones again. And before we dive into the drones, thank you all for indulging me in our silliness of the robots. The reason we're doing robots and other planets and being kind of goofy is that we need goofy right now at this time in our lives as individuals and families and a congregation. There's not enough silliness. And so that's why we're spending time with robots and other planets and just enjoying some ridiculous escapism together rather than diving into straight hardcore study. So that's why we're being kind of silly together. And the story we're using is that we've discovered another planet on the other side of the sun that is on our orbit. And so we, of course, being good Presbyterians, set up an evangelism committee made of drones. And so we got our settler drones here that we sent to this other planet. And these drones, this becomes important for us this week. They are very much like humans. They eat food. They need downtime, just like we do. They have to sleep. They have limited knowledge, but an incredible capacity to learn, which we talked about last week as they were learning so much information, and they created their plot device. And so when they first arrived on this strange planet, they settled this area right here. And then as the week progressed, they kind of shifted down this way. And this week, our drones, they've made some changes in their territory. It hasn't exactly expanded. Their territory actually looks like this now. They've lost some ground. The good news is that they've got a really good capital. They've got it walled in. You can see here, they got 2 walls. The capital is really secure, and they've made some significant cultural advancements, but they did lose a little bit of territory. And so as our drones were gathering, we talked last week about one of the challenges they began to have. Our drones, they started having strange dreams. And so I, of course, when they sent me the message that they were having strange dreams, I messaged them back and asked what the dreams were like. And they sent me a picture. And the drones said that they're dreaming things like this. And they're really bothered because a number of drones have had dreams not exactly like this, but similar. And they're not sure why they're having similar dreams. And so the drones would like for us to help them understand why they're having these dreams and what they mean. So they've been having the same dreams. They've started taking notes. They're writing down what they're dreaming about. They're making sketches of the pictures, and then they're taking notes of what happens the next day, because our drones have come to believe that their dreams may be revealing things that are going to happen in the future. And so they would like for us to help them decipher what the dreams mean. And so we are going to work together in our breakout rooms to decipher their dreams and figure out what they mean. So that is going to be our thought experiment tonight. And to do so, we are going to have to play around with another piece of technology. You are going to need to play with a website. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat. This is the link. Don't worry, I will put it in the chat here momentarily. So what you're going to do is you're going to visit this site, and it's going to walk you through what the dreams are and what has happened to our drones the following day. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my sharing for just a moment because I'm doing too many things at once. And I'm going to put this in the chat, and then I'm going to show you an example. I'll share my screen again and show you what you will find when you get to this site. So let me cut and paste our address here. And all right, there it is. Don't visit just yet. Before you visit that, let me show you what you can expect to see. So you should see my screen here. It should say Nearpod, welcome to your lesson. Give me a thumbs up if that's what you see. All right, great. Now, when you get here, if you'd like, you can enter your name. You don't have to. But the important thing is that you're going to use this little arrow, and you are going to be able to flip through our dreams. So this is the first dream from our first drone, the picture of the dream and what happened the next day. Here's dream number 2. Dream number 3, you actually are going to have a series of 7 dreams and what happened the following day. You might want to get a paper and pencil for this one. And then here are the 3 dreams I want you to interpret for me. So in your groups, you can visit the site that is in the chat, work together to figure out the code, figure out how we can interpret the dreams and how we can tell what is going to happen to our drones after they have those next 3 images. So Rebecca, if you want to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms, and if you have trouble with the Nearpod, feel free to send a message through the chat or ask for help. Maybe even get away with succeeding by guess. So what we're going to do is I am now going to give you 3 dreams, and you are going to have a chance through multiple choice to interpret the dreams. So there was our thought experiment, and in your groups, yeah, well, we did this. So this is dream number 8. I am curious, what did it mean? We're going to use our poll. Tell me, what did dream number 8 mean? There are several options, and maybe even just seeing things broken out in this in these categories may help. If you're not sure, it's a multiple choice test. Just take a guess.
Derek, the poll disappeared.
The poll disappeared, yes.
Poll disappeared. Well, okay, let's see.
Oh, that was bad luck.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're not injured.
It must have been defeated too.
All right.
It disappeared again.
Yeah.
You want me to relaunch it? Here.
All right.
Are you trying to relaunch, or do you want me?
Why don't you launch it? See if that works.
Okay. Polling.
Under Cordelia, I think.
It's not even letting me click the button.
The drones don't want their dreams.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's back. So question 1, bad luck. Oh, put me on mute, please.
So hit it here, so it's bad luck. What do you think? Defeated the enemy. Got sick.
Votes are starting to come in slowly but surely.
What is this? This was
All right. So this was our little smiley face, had some rocks behind him. There was a tear coming out of her right eye. It's on our left, and a smiley face with no teeth showing is what we had in our image for tonight for our 8th dream. All right, got a couple bold guesses so far. I'll give you about 15 more seconds. All right, now the votes are starting to come in. Very good, very good. Okay. All right, not too bad. We've got some front runners here.
We can't submit ours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not.
Okay.
There's a fourth question. You got to scroll down after the fourth.
Oh, I didn't see the 4th one.
There we go.
That's why. Got it.
All right.
Thanks, Ron.
Well done. We are using Zoom to its maximum capability this evening.
So are our brains.
Yes. All right. So give you 5 more seconds to answer all 4 of those questions. Okay. Okay. And just about done finishing. You lock in those last responses. All right, here we go. So we decided that this was bad luck, defeated its enemy, was happy, but no injury. All right, let's see what our answer was. What does it mean? This one had good luck, defeated its enemy, was happy. All right, this one, if you get a chance, we won't force you to go through the poll results on this one. But dream number 9, what does it mean? Bad luck, was defeated, got sick, and was injured. And finally, our last dream, dream number 10. Again, a slightly different picture. What does it mean? His wish was granted, and that's it. Nothing else for dream number 10. So there are a couple different pieces of our dreams. So as you look at these pictures, you notice there are several different things that are unique to each picture. There's several different backgrounds. You may have noticed that this one has stars and some land. This one is just stars, and this guy had just land. Also, they're looking different directions. We had tears from different eyes, and sometimes the mouth is open, sometimes the mouth is closed. And each one of those corresponded with part of the dream. You'll see them all laid out in just a moment from a very, very old dream interpretation tablet. So as you guys were in your groups, I was looking at our map, and just like each other week, I discovered it looks a whole lot like the map of the Empire of Babylon. And so right after Assyria, Babylon came to power, and they were, as you noticed, it's a smaller area, but they were known for being far more culturally advanced than the Assyrians. This is where you've got those, and you can actually just barely make out right here, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. If you're familiar with the Hanging Gardens, Babylon was famous for its culture, for gardens, for education, and religion. And so Babylon made a lot of cultural advances, even if their territory was a little smaller. And Babylon was, especially as we think about Babylon and dreams, there's a very important story from the Bible, and we get from the book of Daniel. And so taking a couple verses from the second chapter of Daniel, in the second
Anne Strong gets credit for this. She remembered, you mentioned this.
And got this one good. In the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed such dreams that his spirit was troubled and his sleep left him. So we've got the king of Babylon, who, much like our drones, was having strange dreams. And so he then he calls together all of the wise men from his kingdom and says, "If you do tell me the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation." And they answered him a second time, "Let the king first tell his servants the dream, then we can give its interpretation." So we're skipping some verses here, but what you see what's happened is the king called all the wise men and said, "I had a bad dream. I want to know what it means. Tell me what my dream was and tell me what it means." And so the wise men then responded to the king and said, "That's not really how this works. We can tell you what your dream means, but you have to tell us the dream first. Once you tell us the dream, we can tell you what it means." The reason the wise men were so insistent is that they had actually developed a science for interpreting dreams. We know this because we have found their notes, and they look like this. This is a sketch from an actual Babylonian tablet that was a guide to dream meanings. And so we've discovered that the Babylonians, and this, you'll notice this is not any sort of alphabet that we recognize. This is kind of a cuneiform, but luckily we have been able to translate it. And so I'm going to share with you what this tablet says. It says this: if the heavens he beholds, there will be his undoing. If the earth he beholds, he will be favored. If heaven and earth he sees, there will be the attaining of desire. In other words, if there's only the sky behind our little face, it is bad luck. If there's only the earth behind our little face, there's good luck. And if there's heaven and earth, our drone is going to have the wish come true. Next, if to the right he looks, his adversary will die. If to the left he looks, his adversary will overpower him. Depending on the direction he's looking, either he's going to be defeated or he'll defeat his enemy. If his right eye flows, sickness will appear. If his left eye flows, his heart will be glad. So either, depending on which eye is weeping, he's either going to get sick or be happy. And then finally, if he opens his mouth, he will suffer damage. And so in our little pictures, if our drone had its mouth open, if our emoji's mouth was open, that meant injury. So it turns out our drones were actually dreaming in ancient Babylonian. Who knew? Right? And so these ancient Babylonian sorcerers, when the king said to them, I'm having strange dreams, tell me what they mean, the sorcerers said, no problem. Let's get out our books and then you tell us the dream and we'll look it up and we'll tell you what happened. But of course, the king had something else in mind. And so let's see what happened next. Returning to our story, the Chaldeans answered the king, there's no one on earth who can reveal what the king demands. In fact, no king, however great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. And the Chaldeans were a specific nationality, a group of people that were connected to sorcery. And so many of the sorcerers were Chaldeans. And they went on, they said, the thing the king is asking is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with mortals. And so they explained to the king that there was no way for them to interpret the dream because they actually weren't looking to do anything divine. They were trying to do something quite mortal. They actually weren't claiming supernatural powers. They were claiming natural powers because the way they interpreted dreams was kind of with the scientific method. I mean, not exactly, maybe more the pseudo-scientific method, but because we have these records, we learn that the first thing they did, they began with a question. What does the dream mean? Then they developed a hypothesis. Maybe if the left eye flows, it means bad luck. So once they have their hypothesis, they test it. They ask people who had dreams about tears from their left eyes. Hey, did you have bad luck that day? What happened to you that day? They tested the hypothesis and then they drew a conclusion. It turns out, no, we were wrong. Some people who had their left eye flowing with tears had bad luck, but other people didn't. So that's not exactly what it meant. And so they then repeat and go back and they started to take these notes and they have these just pages and pages of images and symbols about the people who their eyes begin to tear up or they look one direction or another, whether they trip and fall or whether something happens to their toes. There are pages and pages of these documents as the sorcerers were trying to apply the scientific method to interpreting dreams. And so when the king came to them and said, I want you to do something not natural, but supernatural, I want you to tell me my dream, they couldn't do it. And that's where the story gets more interesting. So we go back to Daniel. So Daniel went in and requested that the king give him time and he would tell the king the interpretation. And so Daniel goes back, he visits with his friends, especially those great guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the story about the furnace, if you remember them. They also have the Hebrew names of Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael. And so Daniel gets together with his buddies and they pray. And after some prayer, they come back. And then Daniel says to the king, here's your dream. You were looking, O king, and lo, there was a great statue. The statue is huge. Its brilliance extraordinary. It was standing before you, and its appearance was frightening. And so God reveals to Daniel not only what the dream means, but the dream itself. And then Daniel proceeds and he explains to the king what the dream means and what the different parts of the dream are. And he ends up, in some senses, predicting the next several empires that would come to power. And so as we think about this and we think about our empires, let's go back and sort of recap where we've been. We began with the Egyptian Empire, and this there was a lot of territory here. It wasn't terribly densely populated, but after Egypt, then the Assyrians come to power, and they broke through the walls. They went under the walls. They went over the walls. And then we got to Babylon, which looked more like this. And so as we are trying to keep ourselves rooted in scripture and how these empires go along with Bible stories, remember in Egypt, we get books like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus through Kings and Chronicles, characters like Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, the judges. And that's during Egypt. Then when Assyria is a major power, we got Second Kings, Second Chronicles, Jonah, maybe some parts of it's kind of hard to say the book of Isaiah, but the life of Isaiah. And then you get Isaiah and Jonah are some prophets that lived during the Assyrian reign. And so now with Babylon, you get a number of the prophets, people like Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations. Isaiah is around for a lot of these empires. So those are some of the books. And then the characters, you also get Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Jeremiah, Baruch, who is Jeremiah's scribe. So these are the characters that go along with the empire we're looking at today. But as we think back about our drones here and go back to this sort of problem solving, our drones, we're going to need to instruct them to approach this problem and to do their best to use the scientific method. If their dreams do mean something, if they have this significance, maybe a good way for them to start is to follow that process, to start with a question and to make a guess, and then test it out, draw some conclusions, and start over. And so as we're finding ourselves with all these different challenges and problems facing us during this strange period of lockdown and quarantine, sometimes the emotions that overwhelm us, things like anxiety, the fear, sometimes it can be really helpful to slow down and do something a little more systematic, a little more analytical as we approach our problems, and to follow a system, to start with a question. What is the problem I'm having? And come up with a guess. Maybe this is a solution. Then test it, see if it works, and start over. And even as we start thinking as a church, we've done this as a church so many times during this past year. Think about how many different times our worship has changed and evolved over the last 12 months. Try to think back to those very first worship services after the lockdowns were imposed. Do you remember what they looked like? If you remember what they looked like, you're kidding yourself, because they didn't look like anything. There was no video in those early worship services. We started with nothing. It was just audio. And then we slowly started adding some video elements. And then we started moving to cameras. And then we did multiple cameras and we played with different angles, trying to find the thing that approximated worship the way that we were most comfortable with. And we kept going back through this process. And I can tell you, people on this call, Kevin and Rebecca and Craig, they spend hours every week talking through what would it look like if we shifted the color saturation from this camera? What would it look like if we did this angle during the offering? What would it look like if we changed 2 different camera angles during the sermon? And just keep going back through that process. And if you look at what worship looks like today and what it's going to look like in 2 or 3 months, it's probably going to be pretty different. We keep repeating this process over and over and over, coming at this problem from different angles, like the Assyrians, using the things in our environment, like the Egyptians, and coming at it again and again and again, and iterating the process over and over, like the Babylonians. And as a congregation, we're going to get to do this a lot once we start to reopen. Have you started thinking about what that's going to look like? Right, it's going to be hard, and it's going to be a process, and we're going to have to try and figure it out together. But the great news about the process like this is we can do it together. We can think through these things as a congregation, and we can take the steps over and over. We can be gracious with each other, and we'll solve the problems. It'll take time, but we'll get there. So for our settler drones, with their newfound confidence, they're going to begin to venture further and further out into this planet. And they're going to see if they can't maybe expand their territory. Now that they've got this this knowledge of how to interpret their dreams and how to learn how to interpret their dreams, they're going to be able to open up into whole new territories. But some of those early drones, the scouts that went out early, they let us know that they've hit an obstacle. There's something in the way that is blocking them from progressing any farther. So where are they going to go? And what is the obstacle that's going to stop them? And next week, are they going to expand their territory? Or are they going to contract even farther? I'll let you know the answers to these and more questions next week when we get back together for week 4 of our science and sorcery of solving problems. So it is 7:01. I keep trying to get us done right before 7, and I'm missing it by like this much. We'll see if we make it next week. But as we wrap up, let's take a moment to go to God in prayer. Let's pray.